Welcome to the Stellify podcast. Today I've got my very good friend, the beautiful Jacqui Deevoy, an amazing journalist. There's not many that actually stood up to what was going on over the past few years and actually tried to get the truth out. Without going into, obviously we're going to touch on these subjects, and I think, as you know, that I want to try and keep this channel as safe as YouTube as possible to reach people, because without it, they're obviously cancelling everything, as you know. And a good friend of mine, Callie Spell, on the Dark Matters podcast, just did an interview with Matt Letizia, and that was cancelled instantly because they talked about the certain subjects that's been happening over the past few years. And it's amazing, actually, that is still going on when it's starting to trickle to the mainstream, even though you were so active 4 years ago and 3 years ago to try and get it into the mainstream. What do you think, Jacqui?
Yeah, it is surprising that there's still these banners stuck on everything, and that films and podcasts are being taken down. But I've managed to put my latest film, Playing God, which was released back in April, up on YouTube. And it's been up there a little while now. It's had we kind of kept it quiet until today, and I just posted the link to it on Twitter, and there were 1,500 views already, even though we didn't advertise it. Keep it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So, but I think now, hopefully, more people will see it. Now I've put it up on my Twitter page. So it's if you want to see it on YouTube, then just go to my Twitter page, and it's. Actually, I'll make it the pin post after this chat, because then everyone can find it quite easily. But yeah, I'm surprised. They did put a banner on it. They put a banner on it saying, NHS, if you want to know more about the COVID-19 vaccine, go here, because there is one person in the film who is talking about her partner. That's Vicky, who was talking about her partner who died after he had that AstraZeneca thing. Mm-hmm. Am I allowed to say AstraZeneca? Well, I've just said it. So.
Well, yeah, it's your film, by the way, is so important, Jacqui, and I will put a link into the description for anyone that reaches this podcast and wants to watch it. I mean, I was very grateful that you invited me to the premiere in London. It was lovely to meet you in person, spend some time with you. But the film is so important. Not just on that subject, though, is it? It's on what the NHS. Unfortunately, the pathway, it hasn't stopped, has it? The Liverpool pathway hasn't stopped, and yeah, the film highlights some very harrowing moments with some wonderful souls who I was fortunate enough again to meet at the premiere. But your film is so important, and it does need a reach. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the film?
Yeah, I mean, we started making it back in 2022. We crowdfunded it. My co-producer, Phil Graham, and I did all the crowdfunding, and it was directed by the award-winning Naeem Mahmood and Ash Mahmood. But it took a long time to make, because it's hard to raise the money. We were kind of raising a bit of money, then doing a bit of filming, and kind of just as we went along. So it was a difficult way to do it. We wanted to do another film as well, but I think this time I'm going to have to raise the money before we do the film, because it just takes too long otherwise. I'm hoping to get some sponsors this time around as well, because we obviously now we can prove that we can make a good film, so people might have a bit more faith in us and come forward and maybe sponsor us, and that way we can get the new film out there more quickly. But we haven't really decided on that yet, so but we are definitely going to do one. It's just when is the question. So the film actually is an investigation into democide in the UK over the last 50 years. So we had people on who were talking about the things that have happened to them and their loved ones over the last 50 years, basically. So one lady, she was talking about her daughter who was killed in hospital in 1978. She was made a guinea pig, basically, put on a drug trial for a drug called Epilim, which is an epilepsy drug. The 12-year-old girl didn't actually have epilepsy. They just thought they had her there, so they started testing the drug on her. she died as a result. And it's an absolutely horrifying story when you actually hear the whole story. They all are. Then we had Elena Blake on talking about how her husband was murdered in hospital, in Trellis Hospital down in Cornwall, after being put on midazolam and morphine, which is used usually as an end-of-life protocol. I mean, I don't think it should be, but it is, because hastening someone's death in any circumstances is murder as far as I'm concerned. He was 54 years old. He had a few issues. They went into hospital with a suspected chest infection, and they killed him. They actually killed him in front of her. So she tells her story. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And Vicky, like I mentioned, talks about her fiance, who was killed after getting the AstraZeneca jab. Excuse the noise here. And then we have Stephen Clark and his sister Deborah talking about their mother, who was murdered in hospital in 2021. So the stories are shocking and heartbreaking as well. I can't watch the film without shedding a tear, even though I know what they're going to say next. You know, you just can't help it, because you can see the pain and the suffering that they've been through, and it's absolutely horrendous. You know, when we're actually filming as well, I think that's what is a bit different about the film, because we just kind of let people talk and we let them show their emotion, and if they start to cry, we didn't stop filming, just because I thought it was really important to capture that emotion, just to let the viewer know how painful it was and for them, and how painful it still is, and to show that, you know, these are real people, they're not just statistics. And and it's, some of these things are still going on, and the main reason to get the film out was to raise awareness, obviously, and also to try and put a stop to it. The more people that are aware of it, the more people we can get on board to help put an end to what's going on.
How do you think it would be stopped? I mean, before we get into politics, because we're going to definitely touch on that. You know, generally things go through Parliament and all, and we know what goes on there. It's just a big bloody show. But how does it stop, though? Because I mean, we've got some very powerful, rich, greedy figures that are running these operations, full of corruption. Is it literally? Do you feel that the power of the people, you know, that awareness, if it got to enough people and there's enough anger or enough emotion, do you think that's what can stop it?
On the one hand, yes, and also on a very kind of individual level, people can be aware of, you know, what has been happening in within the NHS and in hospitals, in care homes, in hospices, and they can keep a closer eye on relatives if they do have to go into one of those settings, and then, you know, just keep a lookout, because it is still going on. I do believe it was ramped up horribly back in 2020 and 2021, because people were coming to me all the time then with their stories, and they still are, but less so. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it means it's happening less. Maybe it does. I hope it is. But I think if you're aware of what happens and what can happen, you're able, on an individual level, to prevent it. You know, you can keep a close watch. Let the staff at the hospital know that you're keeping a close watch as well, and let them know that you know about you know, palliative care and you know, when these drugs should and shouldn't be used. So it's quite interesting, though. You know, people that I just speak to randomly in the street or when I'm out or whatever, more and more people are aware of it now. If I mention anything about it now, they go, "Oh yeah, I've heard about that." So the word is getting out. It has taken nearly 4 years to get to this point, but if everyone spreads the word and shares the film, and also the first film, A Good Death, that I made with Iconic back in 2021, which covers that solely, the midazolam murders, as I call them. More and more people do seem to be aware, and the more we spread the word, the better it will be.
It's interesting that I've got a new client who I met on Monday, and she was telling me her father was pretty much put on end of life, and the same drug combination was being used, and she recognised that, stopped it, and now he's now not at full health, but he's out of hospital.
Well, if she hadn't recognised that and she hadn't stopped it, he would probably be dead by now. So, and you say, we refer to it as end of life. You know, these people get put on end of life. The problem is most of them aren't at end of life. If you know, back a couple of years ago, and probably now, but I don't think so much. If they spot an old person, it's just like, okay, put them on end of life because of their age. It's totally ageist and totally discriminatory, you know, that they were doing this to the elderly. It was also the disabled as well, and they weren't all elderly and disabled. I don't know if you remember a story back in 2020 when I think it was a BBC headline where they were saying, I can't remember what the actual percentage was, but I think 60% or a huge percentage anyway of so-called COVID deaths were disabled people. And I remember thinking, wow, so they're actually, you know, they don't realise there's no such thing as COVID and these people aren't dying of a mystery killer virus. What they're saying loud and clear is that disabled people are being euthanized. That's how I read it. And there was another headline as well back around the same time saying that it was kind of a great unexpected positive consequence of COVID that the government was saving on pensions because so many elderly people were dying. It was just horrendous, you know, when you look back. Well, I knew at the time, but I think a lot of people now who maybe didn't know at the time, if they look back at those headlines, they'll be absolutely horrified.
Do you think people are questioning it more now? Obviously, back in those days, I mean, it was a few of us lone voices. It felt quite a lone voice at times. But there's been a lot that's happened over the past few years of sudden incidents, if you like, if you want to call it that, and I think a lot of people seem to be becoming a bit more aware of things, but there's still a lot that's not, I find, as well. There's still that very much, you know, complete faith in the white coat, if you like, and trust in science and all that, and the media, etc., etc.
Yeah, a lot of them don't want to be aware. It's a choice, you know. They're willfully ignorant because, and in a way, I don't blame them because it's a lot to take on. And if you've lived your whole life, like my neighbour, who's nearly 80, and she's trusted the doctors all her life, you know, as a lot of people of that age have. And it's only now she's starting to think a little bit, but I can see she doesn't want to because, you know, it can turn a person's whole world upside down and inside out. It'll shatter, you know, once your worldview is shattered, you know, once you realise that you've been lied to about that, you have to start questioning, you know, everything else as well. Have you been lied to about everything? And then when you realise you have, and it's not a shock to the likes of you and I, but I think for a lot of people it's a massive shock. And they have a choice at that point. They think, do I pursue this and go down the rabbit holes and try and find out, you know, why I've been lied to and what's really going on? Or shall I just, you know, forget about it and just carry on with my life, especially if you're an older person? And part of me, you know, when I talk to older people about this kind of thing, there's a part of me that feels really bad because I'm thinking, oh, I don't want them to get all upset and spend, you know, their last years in this terrible state of anxiety and stress with all these dreadful realizations. And of course, the fear that comes with it, you know, when you're elderly, you're thinking, well, I might be in hospital soon. I might be in a care home, you know, and sadly, a lot of elderly people do spend a lot of time in hospital these days, ones that I know anyway, especially the ones that have had the jabs. And it's a terrifying prospect. And I can totally understand why they might choose not to go there.
Yeah, I do as well. Your worldview does completely change. I mean, I've got a complete distinction of when I would class myself as an NPC to kind of becoming aware of the world as it is. Do you remember a change, or have you always been aware?
I've kind of always questioned everything because my dad taught me to do that. In 1969, he did tell me that that no one landed on the moon, because I came home from school having heard about it. And I remember watching it on an old black and white TV in the school hall as well. I don't know if that was a dream or not, but I remember coming home from school and telling my dad about it, and he said, "Don't believe everything you see on the telly, you know, and no one's been to the moon. It's not possible." And so I kind of always knew that. And then, yeah, I've always asked questions and always wondered. Some people think a bit that I wonder too much. I'm always very curious. I want to get to the bottom of everything. You know, I was one of those children that was always asking why, and always putting my hand up in class saying I didn't understand what they were talking about and could they explain it again. And so I was a bit of a pest, really. Yeah, toward the end of my dad's life, he actually said to me, he was in bed recovering from a stroke, and he said, "Oh, will you stop asking questions?" And I said, "You're the one who taught me to ask questions in the first place. I can't stop now. I'm winning." So no, it's in my nature to be curious and a bit kind of nosy and a bit detective like. I always want to find out, you know, the whys and wherefores of everything. So
do you think that's what took you on the path of being a journalist?
No, that was it was a kind of a love of fashion and drawing that got me into magazines back in the 80s. So I went to fashion college, but the only thing I liked about fashion college was doing the drawings and the designs. And I thought, well, what can I do with that? And I thought, oh, I could do illustrations for magazines. So I just picked a random teenage magazine at the time, thinking, oh, they'll probably like my drawings, and sent some in. And then I thought I can't send just the drawings. So I wrote little articles with them. So, you know, I don't know if you remember the 80s fashion, no, you're way too young, but how to turn your sweatshirt into a vest, a hat, some leg warmers and a wristband, some wristbands, you know. And so I would do like little diagrams of, you know, this plain old sweatshirt at the start and then these lovely fashion items at the end. So I sent those to teenage magazines and they started buying them. And then I started looking at the magazines thinking, well, maybe I could write a short story or something for them as well. So then I started writing short stories, and then I started writing articles for the magazines. And then I started doing stuff for women's magazines, and then the newspapers would pick up on a few of my things and republish them. And I did appear back in the day on a few Nickelodeon sort of teen shows and other programs. I'm trying to think what else I went on. But yeah, so it just kind of escalated really. And then yeah, when I in 2020 up until that point, my main thing was probably human interest stories, just anything that I would find interesting. I knew lots of other people would find interesting, so I'd pitch it to the newspapers or women's magazines, and I was having a lovely time. I used to do horoscope columns, I used to do quizzes. My favorite things to do were anything that didn't really involve too many other people, you know. But when I started doing human interest stuff, it could be anything. It could be just anything that I would find interesting. I did get quite interested in, from about 2013, I started working with David Icke at the People's Voice channel when he set that up. And then I started getting interested in, you know, and stuff, because a lot of people were contacting us about the HPV jab at the time, the Gardasil and Cervarix jab, where a lot of young girls were being injured by it. So that takes 5 minutes to find that out. It always amazes me that people haven't even spent 5 minutes. They're just injecting this stuff into their babies, into their children, into themselves, without giving it a second thought. And these are the same people that are like looking at all the ingredients on packets of biscuits to make sure it hasn't got any horrible things in it. And yet they're allowing these other toxins and poisons to be injected straight into themselves and their kids.
It's interesting where, you know, like you have these ingredients, like you say, and I mean, obviously the one of the recent ones that you opened it all up and it was like pretty much a huge blank piece of paper.
I was just talking about that the other day. Yeah.
And but I mean, usually they have things like mercury in there, and I remember as a kid being told, mercury's poisonous, it's toxic, isn't it? But then they
It's
started
toxic.
putting,
It's toxic to the human body in any amount. Even one tiny little drop of mercury is poisonous to the human body. So, I mean, I don't think there's mercury in vaccines these days, but thimerosal is I think, a type of mercury, which is still used, I think, in some of the childhood jabs, MMR, I think. And it's caused massive problems. And Andrew Wakefield was perfectly right with everything he said. Was, of course, vilified because he was, speaking out of turn in the eyes of the people who are making money from these interventions, shall we say? But he's vindicated now, as are many other people. As we've been Suzanne Humphreys and lots of people who've been speaking out about the dangers of these injections over the years. I think it's all coming to light now. More and more people are starting to question it, definitely. But whether they'll, go right down the rabbit hole and do proper research, I don't think they have to. I just say to people, just have a look for 5 minutes. Don't go on Google. Just try and get some different opinions, and then make an informed sort of judgment on it all. So, but most people, I suppose, they think they're too busy, or they are too busy, or they've got other distractions or other problems.
But that's exactly it, though. That's exactly it. We're distracted so much, and we're full of stress. We're always under pressure. We're always going a million mile an hour. So therefore, you place in these systems, and you trust the systems, because why would they want to harm you?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to get people to realize and accept that they don't care about us. They don't care about the public. They just care about bringing in the money. And as we know, you just follow the money, and then you get to the truth quite speedily.
Yeah, on that level, it's easy, isn't it? I think it's easy just to follow that track. I mean, where I want to take this channel at some point is, I think that yes, there's definitely greed and corruption in this world, without a shadow of a doubt, because it's everywhere. Human beings are fallible and quite easily manipulated and can become greedy. They sense a little bit of power, and you see it all over. You can see it in you can see it in religion. You can see it in the schoolyard, can't you? You can see it in the workplace, whatever. People just do that for whatever reason. But where I want to go with this is, at some point, is there's something more, because these people that control this realm, if you like, they've got all the money already. So it can't be just about money. It's got to be about something else as well. They've already got the control. They've already got all that. So, like David Icke's been talking about on the Gnostic side of things, that's where I'm interested at this moment, is the kind of loosh thing. Are we dealing with something extraordinary that's above the what we see in terms of the Faucis and the Bidens and the Trumps? You've got that kind of show going on, but is there a hidden thing behind that we don't see? Obviously there's a bloodline, we know there's bloodlines as well, but is there something more? What goes further? What do you think?
Yeah, my feeling is that there's definitely something more. There's hidden stuff going on behind the scenes. I think a lot of what David Icke says is absolutely right. But it's too much for most people to comprehend, and it does take a long time to get to grips with that stuff. That's why, David was mocked for so long, because it just sounded, the world wasn't ready for what he had to say,
No.
Even though what he said, most of what he said, in my opinion, is the truth. But I just think it's too much for most people, and most people just don't have that kind of time or space in their life to sit and study it. So they just dismiss it. This is the thing, isn't it? When people don't know about something, rather than just saying, "Oh, I don't really know. I haven't really studied that," they just say, they just mock it, and say it's ridiculous, and which is really annoying actually when you're the person who has looked into things. I remember a few years ago talking about the jabs on, I think, a Facebook thread or something, and someone I knew popped up sort of talking about, you know, how great vaccines are, and how they've done this and how they've done that and how they got rid of polio, and I just messaged her privately and said, don't do that, because you obviously don't know very much on the subject, and you're popping up on a thread with people who've been studying this stuff for 15, 20 years, and you're just making yourself look stupid. Don't do that. It's like if I popped up on a thread about football and started trying to, you know, tell everyone about it, and I haven't got a clue, or about politics even. I try not to talk too much about politics. All I know is that it's theatre. The whole thing is theatre, and there's not separate parties. You know, it's all one big party, and they all go to the same parties after work, that's for sure. And they're all play acting, and it's all a game. You know, you might as well, you know, watch the X Factor or something. You know, it's just a little show, a little game to keep people amused and distracted from everything that's happened over the last 4 years. So you've got these politicians who've basically wrecked the lives of hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people, ruined their businesses, killed their loved ones. You know, absolutely. I did do a couple of posts today about this, and yes, suddenly it's like, okay, yeah, we did all that, but which one of us do you like the best? You know, and it's like, no, we don't like any of you. You know, you lied, you cheated, you murdered, you partied while people were dying in hospital alone. You know, you're the absolute lowest of the low. You're demons, and now you want us to play this little game with you where we have to say which one we like best. You know, no, I'm not doing that, because I haven't forgotten what they've done. I don't like any of them best. And I think that the fact that people are going out and voting and getting all embroiled and engrossed in this strange little piece of theatre, it kind of shows that you're very, very forgetful, or that they want to forget. I mean, I've had people say to me, oh, you're not still talking about that, you know, COVID and euthanasia and the jabs, are you? That's also kind of you know, 2021, you know, why are you still talking about it? Can't we just forget about it? There are a lot of people who do want to forget about it, and I find that quite sad, really. It's just sad. It shows how easily distracted people are. It's like, oh no, forget that, we're doing this now, and they're like, oh, all right then, and they're just like I don't know, just like cats following butterflies or something. You know, it's just like yeah, it is actually a bit beyond me. Although on the one hand, like I said, I do understand why people don't want to. It was such a horrible time for most people. They don't want to keep going on about it and remembering it and going over and over it. But at the same time, I think it's very important that we don't forget, because it cannot happen again. Even though it is going to happen again next year, they're going to try it all over again. And sadly, I think a lot of people will go along with it. I was talking to David Vance Monday evening on his show, and I was saying I think a lot of people love it. They actually loved the whole faux pandemic. They loved the drama, and they loved the you know, it just made a big change in a lot of people's very dull lives. They liked being furloughed. You know, they liked the nice weather that we'd been sent as well. Do you remember how hot it was in March 2020?
It was the first holiday I'd ever had.
Yeah. Everyone's sitting in their garden, you know, sipping their Chardonnay and getting sunburn and having a lovely time. There were a large group of people who were doing that. Sadly, financially, I fell between the cracks and couldn't get anything. But story of my life when it comes to earning money. But well, in the last 4 years anyway, because of course. But yes, so I think a lot of people actually actively enjoyed it and are probably rubbing their hands with glee, thinking it's going to happen all over again, even if they don't believe there's going to be a terrible pandemic of avian flu. They don't care about that. They just like all the stuff that comes with it. I think one of the advantages was being served at tables in pubs. I quite like that because I'm quite lazy about going to the bar. But
I hated doing that at my pub. I hate it. I just refused. It was like, no, if you're going to come and get a pint, you come to the bar and you get a pint.
Good for you. I remember going into a bar where I live and with a friend, and I hadn't been in it since all the silly rules were imposed. And I went in and went straight up to the bar. And the girl said, no, you can't come to the bar. I was like, why not? She said, no, you've got to sit at the table and we'll come over to you. I went, okay, fair enough. So she did that. And a few minutes later, I got up to go to the loo. And she was, no, you've got to put a mask on. And I said, no, I'm not going to put a mask on. I don't have a mask and I never will have a mask. And I must have gone to the toilet about 4 or 5 times. And she was like screeching at me every time I got up. And I was just laughing and shaking my head because there's nothing they could do, really. And I did go around where I lived. I printed up some flyers just explaining politely that, you know, if anyone comes into your place without wearing a face covering, please don't ask them why, because you could get into big trouble. And people have been, you know, businesses, pubs, fish and chip shops, you know, other shops were liable for £9,000 fine. And at that point, there had been one that had settled out of court for 7,000. And I said, you know, you're a small business. You don't want to go out of business. So just be really, really careful. So if anyone, I said, luckily I'm a nice person, so I'm not going to do anything about it. But I could actually take you to court for what you've just said to me. I said, but because I'm nice and you're nice. And I think that's probably the best way of going about getting information across to people. Just be friendly and smiling and nice and kind of work it into the conversation rather than just like charging in and blasting them with information. People don't react too well to that. So I think I did manage to get the point across quite a bit. And obviously I had the privilege of being able to go on shows. And then I started my own show for Unity News Network, which I did for 2 years. I can't believe it. I just did my last show last week. And that's been a really good platform, not just for me, but for all the guests that I've had on, yourself included. So so it's been a good 2 years, but I just feel that I just want a break from it for a start, because it is actually quite tiring doing that every week. And also I need to earn some money. You know, the Unity News Network aren't the richest of channels, so I do need to. I've had terrible financial problems over the last 4 years, and have been forced into a situation where I have to sell my flat because it was going to be repossessed, you know, and it's all this stuff. But I just thought, even though it's stressful and awful, to me it's worth it. It is worth losing friends. It's worth losing stuff, you know. And I said to David the other night, I'd rather live in a tent than lie, or, you know, write things that aren't true, or just be part of something that is so destructive and so terrible. I want to be on the right side, not I don't want to be a baddie. I want to be a goodie. I think I must have been a baddie in a past life, because this time around I want to be a goodie.
Well, it's important to be authentic, isn't it? You know, I think there's we've got to look at our souls, haven't we, at this point? And what's the inside saying? And I know during the pub period, I needed to say something, and we lost everything. But I needed to. I couldn't do it any other way.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? That some people are like that, but most people aren't. It seems most people aren't. Most people, it's more important to keep their job than to speak out about things they've witnessed. Or, you know, I'm still finding it difficult to get nurses to talk to me about things that they've seen, and the ones that have approached me are terrified. Even ones who've left the job, you know, they're worried that they'll be kind of punished in some way, because they are. There's one nurse I've been talking to for some time, you know, and she's just saying yes, I'll do it, and then no, I can't, you know, because it is actually a big step to take, and their lives will never be the same afterwards. But it's a leap I felt I had to take. The mainstream media that I used to work for haven't been interested in any of the stories that I pitched to them at the start, apart from stuff about my dad and the care home and stuff. But when it came, I did 4 stories for the Telegraph about my dad being in a care home and how I got him out of the care home, and I took him home and tried to look after him at home and couldn't. And so I did like a series of stories about care homes and about my dad, and they liked those and they published those. That was November 2021. But then, or was it? No, sorry, it was 2020. But then they weren't interested in the midazolam story, the euthanasia story. And I started pitching that in early 2021, and even had meetings with news editors from the national papers, 2 of them, who were really interested and said it had to go on the front page. It was the biggest story of the century, and they said all this stuff, which I knew to be true. It's a massive story. It's a huge scandal. I think it's the biggest scandal ever. It's bigger than the infected blood scandal. It's bigger than the post office scandal. It's absolutely massive. And it probably will come out in 30 years' time. And maybe my grandson will say, "Oh, I think my granny had something to do with that." but that will be 30 years' time. And by then, with the passage of time, people aren't so interested. I mean, the gospel. Do you know about the Gosport hospital crimes? There were hundreds and hundreds of people killed using these end-of-life methods and protocols. And that's still being investigated. And this was back in I think the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And the doctor that was responsible for hundreds and hundreds of deaths is still walking free. I mean, she must be 80 by now. She's the one who signed off all these death warrants for these poor people. And she used to scrawl across their notes, "make them comfortable," which was a euphemism for put them on the end of life. And so when paramedics went to attend to my dad at home, and I was an hour away at the time, and told me they were just going to make him comfortable, I said, "No." I said, "Don't you dare make him comfortable." And the paramedic on the phone said, "You don't want us to make your dad comfortable?" And I was like, "No, I most definitely do not. Do not make him comfortable." And I said, "What I mean by that is do not inject him with anything. I'm on my way. I'll be there in an hour." And so because they knew I was on my way, they speeded everything up. And half an hour later, he was dead. And my dad had no comorbidities. I'd managed to get rid of his diabetes with the help of a friend who put him on a vegan alkaline diet. He was slim, whereas he used to be fat. He had had a minor stroke that he was recovering from, and he was in bed most of the day at that point because he was still a bit weak. But they just saw an old man in a bed. I say old, he was 78, so he wasn't old. No. And they injected him, and about half an hour later he died. And then they lied and said they hadn't injected him with anything. And then I found out on the ambulance report they had injected him with what they said was glycopyrronium bromide, which can have a fatal reaction. I think he had a fatal reaction to the drug. But his carer did hear them discussing midazolam. So what we don't know for sure. But because I've got no solid proof, I did report it to the police. They pretended to investigate. I don't think, from what I've heard from other people, how the police have been told from above not to look into any vaccine injuries or deaths, just to not take on those cases at all. I think the same goes for these hospital murders, because there are so many of them now as well. I mean, in the support group I've set up, I've got 146 people in the group now, and they've all got the most horrendous stories to tell. And obviously, I've spoken to hundreds more people than that. Not everyone wants to join a group, but every story I've heard, you think, oh, it can't get any worse than this. And then you hear another one, and it's like, oh my God, I mean, just dreadful. And I've heard stories as well from people from 10 years ago as well, and before 10 years ago, when the Liverpool Care Pathway was being used. One woman in my group, and she won't mind me telling you this because she's told it before, when we're on UK Column, she came on with me. She's called Barbara Williams, and her husband was killed, and they said to her minutes after he died, "Can we have his skin?"
Right.
And she said, "What? This is a woman who's just seen her husband die." And they said, "He's got lovely skin. We could use that." It's like something out of a horror film.
I've
The
never heard that before.
insensitivity is unbelievable. I've got a theory now that these death squads, these mercenaries, these killers were brought in especially to do these jobs, because your average doctor and nurse isn't like that. They're not killers. They're not mercenaries. They're decent, nice people. I think special teams were brought in to do this job, and I think possibly from abroad, and because a lot of them have just disappeared into thin air afterwards. I've had reports of people not having name badges on, refusing to give their names, and these nurses, so-called nurses, and then when they've tried to find out about them later, they're nowhere to be seen, they don't exist. The stories are unbelievable. So it got me thinking, that maybe they were brought in, paid very well, and then taken away again. I don't know. It's just because it is almost impossible to believe that your average nurse would behave like that. But one thing that practically everyone I've spoken to has said is that these medics won't look people in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't look at them. And often they don't speak. They just come in, do the job and leave. It is really, really like a horror film, and all the people I've spoken to, they're never going to get over it, and they're never going to rest until they get justice. And it's destroyed their lives. These people have become ill, they can't sleep, they've got anxiety and depression and PTSD, and they've spent years trying to get justice for their loved ones and getting nowhere. Although I must tell you that there are things going on behind the scenes, and there have been court cases and hearings. And the man that came to me, I always mention him in my interviews, the man that came to me in the first place, who was telling me that one of his relatives had been killed in an NHS setting. He was the one, and he had all the evidence to prove it. He's been busy in the background. He's kept a very low profile. He's never been on any chat shows or anything. But he says, he's just sent me a message now saying that his case is approaching the fourth coroner's hearing ahead of the inquest. So this is his relative died 4 years ago, just over 4 years ago, and he's been on it ever since. And it's been such hard work. It just kind of takes up your whole life. You can't do anything else. And there are so many angry people now as well that I speak to. They're very, very angry. The stages of grief, anger is definitely one of them. But when someone you love has been murdered and taken away from you so suddenly for no reason at all, it takes a lot longer to get through these stages, I think. And a lot of people are stuck in the angry phase. They're absolutely fuming. And if they don't get the help that they need, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. But they're very, very angry with certain people in particular. And and they're getting quite desperate, a lot of them.
They make it hard work on purpose, though, don't they? Expensive and hard work, so people don't pursue it and just get on with their lives. And not that they forget it, because you can't forget it, but they just get on with their lives.
Well, it's very expensive, like you said, but the government and the NHS seem to have this bottomless pit of money. So you're up against that for a start. They drag it out for as long as possible. It can go on 10 years, 20 years, nobody's got enough money to get them through that amount of time in legal costs. And they hope they're gonna wear you down. They try to wear you down, and they hope you're gonna give up, or they hope you're gonna die. Like a lot of the relatives of the murders in the Gosport Hospital, they have died now. They've been fighting for decades, and then once you die, if there's no family left, that's the end of it. So these people are spending all their precious days trying to get justice for their loved ones, with the feeling in the background that they're not going to get anywhere. But we did have that meeting last year in Parliament that the guy that I just mentioned and me helped set up in with Andrew Bridgen, who did say that he would help us. But obviously, you know, he has been working on all the stuff about the jab deaths and injuries, and it's a lot of work. But I think he will get on. I mean, he's brought it up, and it was just a week after that meeting. He did bring it up with Penny Mordaunt. That was televised as well. He mentioned the deaths in care homes and hospitals. And he said he would do that. And I know that was a week after. It was the 22nd of June, because it was my dad's birthday that day. So he has done what he said he's going to do so far. And I hope he'll continue to work on that. And I do think he will, because he listened to a lot of people's stories there. And you know, obviously was affected by it, about what he heard. And there are a lot more that you can listen to if he wants. But there's a news story today about that footballer, Kevin Campbell, is that his name?
Kevin Campbell, yeah.
So that was in the Manchester Infirmary Hospital. They're questioning what happened to him basically at the end of his life, because he developed heart problems out of the blue. He'd been very fit, healthy. I think we can probably guess what caused that. Don't know for sure though. And then he went into hospital, and then he died. They said he had a heart infection or something, which I've never heard of a heart infection, but obviously they exist. But this treatment, it's mentioned in the news stories about the palliative care that he was given, and that's being questioned. So I'm thinking maybe now's the time, you know, if this sort of stuff is seeping into the mainstream, if they do decide that he was euthanized, for example. I'm not saying that he was, but if they discover that he was, or there was something nefarious going on with the way he was treated, or the actual protocol that was used, because as I mentioned to you before, sorry, if they do find out that, then it could open the floodgates, you know. I hope it does. But it's terrible that so many people have had to die during this time needlessly because of a protocol. The Liverpool Care Pathway it was abolished in 2014, but it hasn't been abolished. They were using it, you know, stealthily. And then, of course, it crept back in 2020, thanks to Matt Hancock, under the guise of NG 163, NICE Guideline 163, which is basically the Liverpool Care Pathway, just not called the Liverpool Care Pathway. They later tweaked it a bit and called it NG 191, just to get people off the scent, I do believe. And but it's basically the Liverpool Care Pathway, and it's that involves withdrawal of essential medications. It involves starvation, dehydration, and the administration of end-of-life drugs, a benzodiazepine such as midazolam, and usually an opioid such as morphine. And those two drugs used concomitantly, used together, depress the respiratory system, and if they're given over a consistent period of time, they will lead to certain deaths. So they know what they're doing. But a lot of people I've spoken to over the years, especially editors on newspapers, especially the younger ones, they say, well, this goes on all the time in hospitals. You know, if someone's old and they're ill and they're given a little bit of a helping hand. And I said, yeah, this is the problem. It is going on all the time, but it's illegal. You know, you're not allowed to kill someone. You're not allowed to give them a helping hand in this country. It carries the same penalty as murder if you help kill someone, even if they want you to. You're not allowed to do that. But the question that keeps popping up in our group all the time is, if you or I did that, gave loads of drugs to an ailing relative and they died, would be done for murder. But you're allowed to do, but the doctors and nurses are allowed to do it in the hospitals.
Yeah, and they seem to be pushing in the mainstream this past year the great way to go, isn't it? You know.
Oh God, yeah. Esther Ranson loves a bit of it, except she hasn't taken up the offer herself. But But she loads of people are pushing it. And if I remember rightly, Matt Hancock used to be against the assisted dying bill. And then in early 2020, he changed his mind suddenly and thought it was a great idea. And they've been pushing that for the last few years as well. That assisted dying, is the way to go, I was going to say, literally. And saying that it's a great thing. And it is legal in about 6 or 7 countries now. We see the slippery slope that can happen when it is used, such as like in Canada, where they're actually offering it to people who are poor and children, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. People who are depressed, with mental health issues. Of course, if you've got severe endogenous depression or clinical depression, there will be days where you want to die. And if they get you on one of those days, they're like, quick, sign here, we'll help you. It's a terrible thing to do, and just I mean, taking someone's life is probably the worst thing you can do. And this is what's been happening consistently. Consistently over the last since 2020, in the places where you think you're going to get help. No. And of course, on top of that, people weren't allowed to have their loved ones with them when they were being euthanized.
No.
So the doors were locked, the relatives were locked out, and God knows what was happening behind those locked doors. Well, now we know, and I've known for some time. That's why I made the films, because I think if everyone can just do whatever they can do, use whatever talent or skill they've got, if they've got a voice, shout, if they are musical, write a song, and there's been a lot of artists going on over there. Some great musicians have come out from this disaster, and I've had most of them on my show. Actually, I had the amazing 5 Times August. Have you interviewed him? Yeah,
I've not interviewed him. I love his album though. I'd love to interview him.
Oh, I've got his details. He's really nice. He's so nice to chat to, and very handsome as well.
Yeah, well, he's certainly a talent. I know that much. When I had the festival last year, I did reach out to him, but he was unfortunately leaving the UK just before our festival, because I was really wanting him to headline one of the nights. Actually,
he is.
His album's superb.
Yeah, no, it really is. He's got a bit of a Bob Dylan thing going on. I've always liked Bob Dylan. Well, I used to when I was a teenager. Not so keen on Bob Dylan after he spoke about selling his soul to the devil. Did you see that interview?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So kind of went off him a bit then, thinking, but at least he's being honest. But that's being honest. Yeah, they tell you, it's in your face and tough if you don't like it. Basically,
they've got to keep going, haven't they? They have to keep going. I mean, the likes of Bob Dylan, like you say, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones. I mean, the Rolling Stones are still doing stadiums. These people. It amazes me. I saw Mick Jagger. I went watching the Stones in '94 at Wembley Stadium. I was right.
So did I was there.
Oh, were you there? The with the big cobra was right above me with it, breathing the fire, and it was the Voodoo Lounge tour. And I never forget thinking, well, Jagger was in his 70s, I think, then. And I was remembering.
I think I saw them in the early 80s, actually, at Wembley.
Right. But I remember thinking, this guy is amazing. The energy level this guy had at 70. And I don't know how old he is now. But
he was born in, I think, 1946, I think.
Well, he's getting on a bit, and he's still his energy levels are more than what I have.
Yeah.
So these guys have clearly sold the soul, because how do you keep doing what you're doing? You just want to give it up, wouldn't you? You want to retire at some point, wouldn't you?
No, not necessarily. I think if you like what you do and you're fit, and also doing that sort of work keeps you fit, all that leaping about and dancing and no, I think if you love what you do, just carry on doing it until you drop. And probably the best place for him to drop would be Tommy Cooper style, mid prance on stage, maybe. I think a lot of artists, comedians, actors, musicians probably think that would be the best way to go, doing right in the middle of doing something that you like doing.
Yeah, well, these guys are not going anywhere. Most of us will be gone before they do.
Yeah, no one thought Keith Richards would last this long.
I know, yeah. there's no illness coming anywhere near him that's going to sort Keith Richards out, is it? He just laughs.
Well, I think that's one of the best preventative medicines, laughter. And that's something I try and do a lot, because it's really important. I always say to people, I've just been talking about all that dark and depressing stuff, but it is really important to have fun and to laugh and to be with friends and people that you like. One of the best times I had recently, I went to Peru and brought my oldest daughter with me. We didn't stop laughing the whole trip. It was great. Good. And it was just like, that's probably my best memory of the whole trip. We went down the Amazon. This was a press trip because we both do a bit of travel journalism. In fact, my first story involving Peru is in the Telegraph this Saturday. Well, so they told me. So hopefully that'll be out. So even though I'm not keen on the mainstream because of how they've been over the last 4 years, I still want to use them. I still want to use them to, write articles for. But they've made it very clear they're not taking any of my, counter narrative sort of articles. Nothing that I really, really wanted to go out there. But if they want to take a few travel pieces, then I'm going to just have to use them for that, because it's what I do. I write. It's my job, and I need to. Unless I go and do something completely different, and I have considered, going to work in Lidl's or something, but because they get paid more than me doing what I do. But my passion is writing and communicating and getting information out there. But maybe I'll focus for a bit on getting some positive information out there, because it can drag you down, dealing with all this negativity. I'm okay usually. I get down and then I bounce back, but I think it's been hard for a lot of people who've been involved in all this. We all have days where we just think, I can't do this anymore. But then something happens and you're drawn back in. You can't stop, So So I will be bouncing back in September with something new. I'm thinking between then and now, I'm going to manifest something amazing. I'm good at manifesting. I'm going to manifest a really good job doing something like the show I did, but maybe kind of better. And so I'm going to manifest that. So let's see. You're recording this so you can see if it comes true. I'm focusing hard. If I'm not offered anything by some billionaire company that's going to pay me £1,000 a day, then I'll just do an independent show, I think. I've got enough people now who've offered to help me. You can help me too, because your professional set up there. I want to look like that, and then work out how to make money out of it. I'm not a breadhead by any means, but a girl needs to eat.
Yeah, we need to make money in this realm that we're in. It's a game that we're in, isn't it? And we've got to play the game. So, like I say, if you've got to use the mainstream just to make a bit of money, just use it. Obviously they're not going to post the stuff that we want to put in there, because it'll upset the sponsors, won't it? They've got big sponsors, so they don't. I'm
looking for sponsors. Like I said before, sponsors for the next film, and we're gonna keep the same team together, and we've got some ideas, and it's going to be as good as playing God. But so if anyone wants to help me at this point in time, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee thing on. Is it Buy Me a Coffee or Ko-fi? Ko-fi, I think it's Ko-fi now that I use, and that's on my Twitter page in the bio bit. And hopefully, I don't know if I want to do a crowdfunder for the next film. I just want to find someone who really believes in us and wants us to put out a film. Children's Health Defence in America, Robert Kennedy Jr., they actually gave a platform to Playing God, and that's really helped. So I'm hoping maybe they could sponsor us next time or something. I don't know if anyone's got any ideas, or if anyone's got a big pile of money that they don't know what to do with, then send it my way.
There are people out there, though, aren't there? That's the thing. I mean, I've not met one yet, but they seem to be out there. People with plenty of deep pockets.
Yeah.
And it's just finding them, isn't it? So I'm sure you will.
People come into money for all kinds of reasons, don't they? I mean, if you or I suddenly inherited millions of pounds, we might think, do you know what? I like that person over there. I'm going to give them some money to make their next film, or I'm going to, help with whatever. Yeah, it can happen. I'm not likely to inherit millions of pounds, but you never know.
You never know. This is the
Mm.
thing. Anything can happen at any time. Life can change positively or negatively, but we'll stick with the positive. Life can change very, very quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you do try and raise funds for anything, you get attacked as well by all kinds of trolling types, saying you're a grifter. I'd never heard that word until 4 years ago. And then suddenly I was one. And it's like, isn't a grifter though someone who's like making money for themselves and maybe in a dodgy kind of way, And it's like, no, I'm raising money to make a film, for all of you. It's not for me. It's like, and it's nothing crooked. Look, I'm very transparent. I'm going to you give us some money, we'll make the film, and then you can all watch it, and it'll be brilliant. And that's what I hope to do again, and maybe again after that. So, yeah.
I always thought a grifter was a bicycle. That's what it was when I was a kid, anyway.
Oh, there was a chopper, and was it called a grifter?
Yeah, there was a rally grifter. There was a
chopper and a chipper, and there was a grifter. You're right.
Yeah. And then the BMX came afterwards. Anyway, we're digressing, but
well, it's not such an insult then, really, is it? They're just calling you an old bike. Been called worse.
Well, this is, it's interesting topic what you say though about people jump on in terms of trolling, and I know that you've had your fair share on Twitter because I've seen it. I mean, there's some people been quite nasty, and I've had it in bits and bouts, and you've got to just kind of laugh it off, haven't you? Because otherwise,
or just agree with them, because that really throws them when you agree.
Yeah, it will do.
So when people say you're an idiot, you can go, actually, do you know what? I am a bit of an idiot. You're right. That they go, oh, what?
What do I do now?
Yeah, just agree with everything they say.
People like a good argument, though, don't they? But it's interesting that during the past few years, saying that they did argue because they were protecting their programming, as say religious people would protect their programming. It's a fear-based thing, isn't it? It's like, again, stepping out of that kind of, there's something more to what I've been programmed with, and you lose that open-mindedness of it all.
Yeah.
So I'll attack instead because it's more comfortable to attack than it is to look at it and go, maybe there is more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, it's like people aren't open to learning anymore. It's quite strange. If someone tells me something that's a bit bizarre, I'll think, oh, that's ridiculous. But then I think, actually, hang on, that's quite interesting. Do they know something I don't know? I'd want to know more about it if it was something revelatory or something that was completely the opposite to what I was thinking. Yeah. I'd have to know more. But most people are very close to it. They've got their set views, and they don't want to hear any other views. Again, it comes from fear, fear of having to change, fear of, if you find out certain truths, it is going to change your life. You are going to have to move away from some people. It might damage your relationship with your partner, or your kids, or your parents, or whatever. You might have to leave your job because you're not buying into something, you're not believing a lie that you've been spun. You might change your whole opinion on your health and everything. It can, like I said earlier, I can understand why people just put their fingers in their ears and say, no, I don't want to know, because it's easier that way.
Oh, God, yeah.
Quiet life, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I witnessed at the pub, sort of pensioners, if you like, that their eyes were opened and they'd fallen out with their wives or their husbands of 50 years, and then came to the pub because they needed someone to talk to, and I can't imagine how difficult that was, as someone that's maybe following this, the crazy world for maybe 10 years previous, to suddenly just wake up to go, this isn't right, and fall out with your wife of 50 years, and then it's like,
but I have noticed that most people who have woken up are happy. I mean, they might have suffered over the last few years, but they're now in a better place than they were. They're happier that they've come out, if you like, or woken up to the truth, because the truth does set you free. I know it's a bit of a corny thing to say, but it really does. When you hear the truth and realize the truth, and it just resonates in a very different way, and it makes you feel different, and it makes you feel good. And it's almost like finding God or finding Jesus, or finding any kind of religion that might resonate with you. It just makes you feel happier, and that's a good thing. But it takes a brave person to go from being totally asleep to totally awake. It really does. I mean, I've just gradually woken up over many, many decades, so it's not been a huge shock. I can't even really imagine how that would feel. A sudden realization. It must be like dying almost, just like being reborn. And God, it must be terrifying. I'd say it is terrifying, especially when you get a little glimpse of it and you think, oh no, no, that can't be true. It must be really scarifying. There's a good word. And the temptation to retreat must be massive, and I understand why people do.
Well, you like you were saying about earlier on about short memories. People don't want to look at the past few years or wouldn't because it's scary. But even things like JFK or 9/11, things like that, they're not talked about in the same vein. People don't want to have those discussions. Like it's forgotten about it. But these are huge events that change society, and events happen all the time, don't they? They false flags, if you want to call them false flags, and it's not to say that people don't get harmed in those false flags, because they do, and it's not nice to look at, is it? But I released a little video only last week. And it's a story that I hadn't come across. You may have heard it yourself, but it was from it's about a lady called Hypatia in Alexandria, and she was a pagan and a Neoplatonist, and it was about the truth schools. And she worked with the Christians as well. In fact, she had a relationship with a Roman Christian. I think he was a Roman. Yeah. And anyway, she was brutally murdered by a Christian sect, because it was like they wanted to stop this critical thought, almost this kind of looking into other things, and it brings about a total rule. And I'm not saying this is an attack against Christianity, by the way. I think religion in general uses these kind of situations to have rule, as do politicians, as do corporations. They're all the same kind of thing, just to control the masses.
Yeah.
And we're no further on. I mean, that we're talking 452 AD there, so that's it's been going on forever. These kind of things. Yeah. That's the kind of world we live in. But we do, like you said, we do need to have joy. We are here for a short period. This human experience that we're having, and we do need to find joy, even though there are all these rabbit holes, and we are seeing the world as we do see it. Like even though meeting you in London was to watch your amazing film and open eyes, it was still a joyful experience to have time with you, meet Ash and various others. You've got to have that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, eat, drink, dance, be merry, and laugh.
So you're going to be doing another film.
Yeah.
And you're going to be writing. You're going to be traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else is up on the horizon then? Have you got anything planned, or are you just going to keep that under wraps?
Do I look like a woman with a plan? Seriously, Ant.
You're going with the flow, eh? But that's the Tao. That's a nice way to go.
Yeah. No, I've never really planned things. Well, I do hope to do another show. Maybe start something along those lines. I haven't really thought it through yet. I feel like I'm in there's a bit of sort of hiatus or something in my life. It just feels like I'm about to leave one chapter behind and start a new one. And I think a lot of people are feeling like that. It's not just me. Something is afoot, and I don't know what it is, but I really feel like a chapter is coming to an end. Do you?
Yeah, energy works that way though, doesn't it? Sometimes you've got to close that door to allow another door to open. And
Yeah.
I've done that recently. I quit my job, and I've thrown myself into a couple of projects which
Yeah.
are very interesting and very positive. But it gets me back to being self-employed. But there's fear in making those decisions again, isn't there? Because you've got bills to pay, as you were saying before. There's a battle with that kind of financial thing. But these kind of who dares wins moments obviously can bring huge rewards as well. And life is a bit of a journey, and it is an experience, isn't it? So we've got to have an adventure with that.
Yeah, my dad used to say that all you need in life are friends. You don't need anything else. If you've got friends, you don't need anything. The friend will give you somewhere to stay. They'll give you some food. They won't see you fade away. And he's actually right. And over the last few years, I've made a lot of new, very, very good friends, and other people are saying the same. They've met people that they would never have otherwise met, and people are going to be friends for life. Even though they've lost friends, they've made these new friends, which is quite interesting. And I've also been speaking to people who've said that if it hadn't been for all the horrors of the last 4 years, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing now. None of us would be, I don't think, because it's taken us off in all different directions, doing things that we felt we had to do. Like I don't like speaking publicly, and I don't like the idea of doing a chat show and interviewing people. Terrified me. In fact, the first show I did 2 years ago, I was nearly in tears. I was so scared. But you have to kind of force yourself into doing these things. If it's the right thing, you've just got to do it, and not be scared. Life's short, so just do what you can, and as loud as you can.
And I think that's a great way of ending the conversation, because it's so positive. We've had a lot to deal with over the past few years, and there may be plenty more to come. I'm sure there will be, but we have got the friends now as well. We have built those relationships over the past few years as well. So if they do throw everything at us, then we can stand closer together, can't we? And there'll be more to join us. There'll be more to join us. So, Jacqui, first of all, I want to thank you so much, not just for joining me on the podcast, but for everything you've done and you are doing. Because the work you are putting out there is so important. People need to be aware of these things, because without that awareness, it's just going to carry on, and people are just going to get trodden on constantly, as they always have done. So, if you've not watched Playing God yet, there'll be a link in the description below. Watch the film. Thank you, Jacqui.
Thanks, Ant.